Baba knows the way. For Joseph, Baba Ifa. Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by Botaniga Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. Guys, we look at the process of Ifa. There's one central theme that cannot be omitted or forgotten, and that is Ebbo. And that's what our video is going to be about today, explaining Ebbo all the way from the moment of symptoms all the way to success, right? Including the consultation, why do we do Ebbo, the importance of doing Ebbo, and what happens if we don't. So
we've never done a video about Ebbo before.
Oh man,
I mean, we've got over 1,600 videos on the channel, so it's hard to believe that we haven't. But hey,
yeah, I mean, and what's up, Phil?
Hey, happy Sunday. But yeah, guys, like I said, we got like 1,600 videos, 1,700 videos on the channel. There's a ton, and if you want to get even more in depth and more Our Roots podcast and more Joseph Baba Ifa, just join our membership program.
Yep,
it's literally a direct click right under this video. It says join. Hit that button. We have 3 separate tiers, each tier offering its own perks, whether it's extra episodes, exclusive episodes, discounts on merch, early releases, live shows just for you. You name it, and just and shout outs at the end of the episode. So make sure you go ahead and join our membership program to get all that extra fun.
Shout out to all the members. Thank you guys so much for your support. Let somebody know about it. Can't wait to see you guys at the workshops as well in Atlanta and New York this year. Very excited to be able to travel, kind of wind down a little bit and just be able to, teach and learn from everybody in a nice, relaxed, comfortable, familiar state. So really excited to go and visit those 2 places.
Are y'all flying to Atlanta or are you driving?
Dog, I don't know. I mean, I got 2 young kids to put them on a plane. I heard the airport's been really crazy lately with
TSA has been,
you know what I'm saying?
But they're getting, I mean, as of this recording, they are now getting paid, so.
As they should be, man. They're protecting us. I mean, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money out there. I don't know why, people aren't being compensated accordingly. But, even when you look at our, education system, our academic system, like, who should we really be paying more than teachers sometimes? Who should we really be paying more than, our civil servants, whether it's our, the police force, our firefighters, our armed forces, the people that make it possible, it's
our podcast producers.
Absolutely, the driving force.
I agree.
But yeah, it's wild when you look at a country as advanced as we are, and we can't get payroll down. Yeah. So but Ebbo, right? So always going back to the name, the word Ebbo literally means sacrifice. So there's plenty of Ebbos. You have Ebbo Shure, which is known as the Ebbo of the poor, where you're going to ask for donations to be able to find and buy the materials you need for your salvation. Now, why would the Orishas recommend this? Maybe the Orishas want to show you who's really there to support you, because if you could ask for something simple like some sugar or some bread and people are like, oh, no, I don't like that, I don't want to be a part of that, Orishas trying to show you who you're really surrounded by, right? So you have Ebbo Shure. Everything's an Ebbo. But the Ebbo that, we in Ifa focus on the most is the Ebbo Oponfa, which is the sacrifice that is done on the Oponfa, or the tray of Ifa, right? Going back conceptually before anything spiritual, our Ori comes down broken from heaven. That's why Orumila is known as Orumiela, which means in heaven I will find my destiny, or the savior of my destiny, which makes reference to Orumila. And the reason they gave him that name is because it is from heaven that our destiny is revealed, and it can't be fixed unless it's revealed first. And like the Oduobeyono states, the revealer of destiny, based on his assistance to the molder of destiny, Obatala Ayala, is orumila or orula. So symptomatically, how do we know when we need spiritual attention, right? And specifically Ebbo. Like, let's say it's before the hand of Ifa. Lots of unfulfillment, lack of compatible partnership, lack of accomplishment in general. You know, you see so many people go through life saying, hey, man, you know, I spent my whole life, I lived my whole life without living. You know, I never accomplished what I wanted to. I never found happiness. I never found partnership. You know, it's a really sad story, but it's actually much more common than we'd like to, you know, accept. This is the perfect example of somebody that needs spiritual attention. Now, apart from that, there's so many other things that could be going on. You know, phenomenon with the health that's a little bit inexplicable. You know, obstacles, aggression, conflict consistently. Like, things just are always falling through for the person. At that point, you know, we have to kind of analyze what is going on. Is it that we're not using the right methods from a terrestrial standpoint to be able to accomplish our goals? Are we motivated enough? Are we organized enough? Are we disciplined enough? Because you have people that are powerhouses, right? They wake up early, they do everything right, they're organized, they live pretty soundly, they don't take any unnecessary risks, and they're not doing as well as on paper they should be. And then you have people who are somewhat of a mess, and they're doing the complete opposite, and they're doing better. So you have to wonder, even though it's not a competition per se, but it is good to have comparables to kind of say, hey, where are we, you know? Even though that's not the ultimate definitive factor or confirmation. But at that point, you need spiritual attention because, you know, Allan Kardec said it best. He posed the spiritual questions to the scientific method. He said, if there is anything logical or biological that could explain this, then it falls within that realm. But if there isn't anything that can tangibly explain what's occurring here, then it must be within that which is spiritual, right? And we have the same concept. You know, there's just no reason why someone should be doing bad if they're doing everything right. There's other things going on. And it really confirms our position as spiritual professionals, because a lot of people say, hey, I don't need that, or, you know, that's not going to work, or none of that's real. But then you have somebody who's had this string of bad luck or horrible things occurring to them. They go through one process of Ebbo and their life completely changes. Or they go through the initiatory process and their life completely changes. You know, that's the power of spiritual realignment in any of its facets. But specifically within Ifa, it all leads back to Ebbo. Now, what causes these negativities? Well, our broken destinies. You know, as human beings, the Odu Irosomei says we never fully situate our destiny in heaven before we get a chance to leave, because there's so many negativities trying to interrupt this process from fulfilling itself that, you know, we kind of leave in a very unorganized fashion from heaven. So when we arrive, there's things missing. There's things we didn't get to fulfill or do. You know, you look at so many documents of Ifa that say, hey, the person was recommended Ebbo in heaven and they never fulfilled it, thus leading to their obstacles on earth. So whether we're talking about initiation or consultation overall, these are things that are going to motivate people to look for those spiritual answers and, you know, possibly lead them back to Ifa, which is ultimately the root. Okay, we're going through all these different things. We're trying to find explanations for it. And the reason this is occurring to us is because our Ori, or our destiny, is disaligned. Now, this could be because of what I just explained. This could be that we were hanging out on the wrong corner, or hanging out with the wrong friend, or we made, you know, a decision that wasn't productive. Any of these things could weaken our destiny or Ori, or our eye chakra, in a way where it allows negativity to contaminate us. So now we have to identify what is it that our destiny or Ori needs to be able to repair itself, fix itself, or realign itself. So you visit the house or establishment or practice of a spiritual professional. In this case, being that's the one I'm most versed in, I'm going to use a Babalawo as an example, right? Being that technically, Iking divination is the first divination that human beings are supposed to go through on earth, right? 7 days for girls, 9 days for boys, etc. So you show up to the Babalawo's house. In Isheshe, it's a little bit of a different dynamic, you know. In Isheshe, the Babalawo has always been viewed as a holistic doctor with divine capabilities, right? And interpretations and interactions and insights. So you'll go visit the Babalawo and you'll say, hey, Baba, chief, whoever, this is what I'm going through. And he's like, all right, here we go. So they perform da opele, or they throw the opele, or they, dafa, or with the king, and they pull the odu. Based on the fact that you told them what you were going through, they know exactly which verse to go to, which Ebbo is associated with it, and they don't even ask most of the time. It's direct, right? Really streamlined, really productive, right? But in the Lukumi tradition, the Babalawo wasn't focused on as a holistic doctor, being that, allopathic medicine was always present in the Western world. He's seen more as a diviner who is going to find the secret combination to fix everything, right? So the way I was trained was, my godfather understood both, being a native Cuban man and somebody that experienced, the United States pretty intensely, and me being, from here as a Hialean. He said, hey, understand that your consult has to be razor sharp. And the only way you're going to be able to get it to that point is through disgusting, vicious, vociferous study. You have to constantly maintain your nose in this book, because based on the way the Afro-Cuban Ifa, which is a reflection of Afro-Cuban culture, is, the Babalawo is always under scrutiny. Someone is coming, because we have Western concepts, there's that, doubt that's natural. For some people, Ifa is, native. For other people, it was learned and assimilated through meeting certain people. There's always going to be that doubt just based on the Western influence that we have on this side of the world. So you have to make sure that the first thing you say is the most precise thing that's going to come out of your mouth, because if you don't say the right thing first, you're going to lose their attention, and then they're not going to like your consult. So imagine the amount of pressure. I'm looking at this guy who's been reading people for 25 years at this point when he initiated me. And when I started sitting in the consultations with my godfather, I was just always in awe of him, because he really lived what he preached. Every time Pedrito threw the opele, the first thing that came out of his mouth was a ginsu. It would just, you'd see it in the people's face. You could see the change in body language, everything. He always got it right on the first shot. And this is what I've tried to emulate in my practice. And with the brothers that apprentice with me and learn with me, they have to understand the gravity of the consult. So what is this ultimately leading to within the conversation? We want to get to the root cause as quickly as possible, because when you look at an Odu of Ifa, bare minimum 1,600 verses per, if it wasn't for certain aspects that Orumila gives us to interpret, we would get completely lost, right? So the Odu that is revealed during the consultation is the vibration that is radiating that person at that time period, depending on the type of consult you do. So if it's a consult for the year, that's what governs them for the year. If it's for a specific situation, it'll be a shorter period of time. But from the Afro-Cuban standpoint, we have to be so on point and so precise and so prepared, because the majority of the time, the client doesn't tell us what's going on. And in my personal case, I don't allow them to, unless they're of utmost confidence. But even when God kids and things come like that, I ask them not to tell me anything, because I want to have that faith-building moment to let them know Rumila sees what you're going through, and it legitimizes the recommendations much more. Because if Baba knew what I was going through without him telling me, that means what he's recommending me has no bias and is going to be most effective, which is the case. So the Odu comes out. That is what the person is living under. That is what is influencing them. What they're going through is a result of the Odu that Ori is manifesting at that point. Now, whether it's initiation or a consultation, neither here nor there. But once the Odu is revealed, we have to identify what state Ori comes in, which leads to the progressive, successive amount of yes and no questions that we ask until the final one, which is Otang, which means may I proceed. Otang abiokung, which means may we proceed, or, are we good right now? Can we move forward? So once we have these two successive throws of Ire or Sobo, depending on what comes out there, that influences the rest of the reading. So with Ire, Ire can mean a blessing, right? Or to be blessed, or in a state of need. So let's say the person comes ire ariku. Ariku means to not see death. So it's a blessing or a need of not seeing death. So either way, the person is being identified as somebody who is predisposed towards death. Now, death or iku can be interpreted as literal lack of, life, like life goes, right? We stop breathing, or lack of function, because death is basically that. Things stop functioning to the point where it relinquishes all the life within the body. So now let's say the person came ayewo, right? Or a negativity, or the famous osobo. Oso, Ebbo means I picked the wrong Ebbo. So it means you picked the seed, right? Or the ojumalu, right? The ojo de buey, instead of the rock, which is the ota. So when you pick that and the negativity is revealed, let's say it's a ayewoiku, which means a negativity or a warning of lack of function. So it's a little different as far as the conversation. And I'll be frank with you, the best readings I've ever had, the best years I've ever had, I've come osobo, or I've come ayewo. And I think, it's because maybe people are more motivated to get things done at that point, which is a huge part of this. And I've noticed that people that come osobo do much better than the people that come ire, because you have people from time to time, even though they don't express it at that moment, they're not going to do the recommendations because they're like, yeah, I came ire, I don't have to, right? Not realizing that, there's so many other, variables that can come from that, which we're going to go over as well. But neither here nor there. Once we've identified the ire or the osobo, and the cause specifically of the osobo, we have to find out which orishas are going to alleviate ori or help repair ori. This is a big point, because once we've identified the state that ori comes in, remember that the word orisha means guardian of ori or repairer of ori. So we have to find out which orishas ori is identifying. It requires things to be given to help repair itself, right? So in a state of ariku or ariku, or iku, we're talking about the health. We're talking about longevity. Great orishas to think about here: orumila, right? The repair of destiny. The he who basically observes or maintains the balance of life and death based on things such as Ebbo. Orishas like Obatala, as well, who have to do with health. Orishas like Erinle, who's identified as a medicine worker or a doctor. And for those brothers that are eligible and initiated, deities like Osang as well, Odudua for all. It starts letting you know what avenue you kind of want to go down, because it is through the prophecy that we ultimately know what to mark. When I first got initiated, I was in a generation where every Babalao wanted to pick up the book and basically repeat what they read. So, I would go to the plantes with my godfather at my godfather's house, and every now and again there would be a random brother there, hi, how are you doing? Sometimes I'd be the youngest, sometimes others would be younger. Within the consultation, the prophecy has always been the responsibility of the youngest Babalao to evolve or unravel the prophecy for the client. Where, you'd have some guys come in and all they wanted to do was be like, okay, what came out? Obefung. And they would just start shooting off patakis from Obefung. And, the client would look at them and be like, those stories are cute, but you're really not telling me nothing. So my godfather always educated me and said, if you're the youngest or closer to the first people that are speaking, you have to develop the prophecy, because it sets us up later on. Remember, this is a team. It's like when a bunch of doctors go in a room, you have one guy looking at the leg, another one looking at stats, another one looking at the head. There's a protocol. So I would unravel the prophecy. The client immediately would respond. You'd notice, confirmations and things like that. And then through that, I would know which patakis to say. Like, for example, let's say Obefun came out, Ireariku, Eleseo Dudua, or Badala. I already know I have to speak about the story in Obefung where the person received hand of Ifa to be able to counteract death, right? So that's how we would know. And that's what Ori is letting you know, that it needs to be able to repair itself, because the word Orisha means repairer of Ori. So it's through making these offerings to the Orishas that the Orishas begin to readjust the destiny in a way that's positive. Because if you look, Ori is saying, hey, you have to make this offering to Obatala to repair Ori. You're actually going in front of Obatala, giving the offering. It's touching your head. We're lighting the candles. We're doing the invocations, all these different things. All of that, metaphysically is repairing Ori. right? So that's super key. So we're going to identify which orishas need something, which ones, and then apart from the orishas and that, there might be specific processes that need to be done, whether it's an ibori, right, or a head rogation, maybe an oparadu, or, Ifa's version of the exorcism. There's so many things. It could be feeding the feet, feeding the hands. We have to make an offering to the moon. All of these things are to help readjust ori or repair it, because it could be that there's a spirituality in the forest that wants something from you, but being that you haven't made that offering, ori is being pulled in the wrong direction, thus taking you away from your destiny and that which is predestined. Or let's say you have something pending to your egbe orum, which literally has to do with your alignment in life, avoiding embarrassment, conflict, all these different things. But if you have something pending there, ori is not able to focus forward. It's being, coerced towards that deity in a different direction. So these are all the things that make us go towards consultation, because there's no other way to explain it. And in Cuba, it's a very different situation. A lot of the brother doctors are babalaos or initiated and whatnot, to where they're like, hey, we run MRIs, blood work, all these different things. We don't know what's wrong with you. But they'll say it, hey, mi padrino vive en tal lado, ve y visítalo. There's liabilities here when it comes to the Western world and medicine, so they can't say it directly. Even though in Hialeah it happens, no problem. Like in certain places where the community is very strong and it's understood. They'll tell you in so many words, oye, ve a brujo. Go see the brujo, go see the babalao, because what you have is something outside of the realm or scope of medicine, right? So all of those things have been identified. Now, the most important part of the consultation is Ebbo. So why is Ebbo the most important part of the consultation process? It is the most intense, most impactful process that we have within the spiritual world. When you go to perform Ebbo, specifically with a babalawo, we've identified the materials and things like that, right? So when you go and you're literally about to do Ebbo, you kneel before the tray of Ifa, touching your forehead and kissing it, right? Why is that done? People are like, oh, for respect. Yes, of course, it has respectful connotations. But the reason you're touching your forehead to Eshu's head, or the cross at the top of the tablero, is almost like a spiritual MRI. It's X-ray. It's to be able to basically assimilate or synchronize your head, your internal spiritual being, your pineal gland, with the tray of Ifa, right? So at that point, the tray of Ifa is your head, right? So you sit down, your feet are on the mat, you're now within this spiritual space that is basically closed off at this point. If you look at how the babalawo sits with the tray in between his feet, and ultimately the person's feet there, it creates the aura, like the one that's mentioned in Obeka. It kind of closes things off, kind of like how the misa does, where you have the rueda, or the circle. It's the same thing there. Oromila is known as Aboni de Gung. He really doesn't share space. That's why if you notice during a consultation of Ifa, no one comes down into trance. There's none of that, because Oromila kind of, cleanses the air, kills the noise to be able to function and work. And, the other energies are very respectful of Ifa, where you see people coming down in consultations and things like that. That's quickly dispersed and dissuaded, because Oromila doesn't share space like the Odu Babawi Meji says. So now we've kind of closed that off, right? We've closed the operating room. The Ebbo packet is opened. You have some things in there. You have a leaf for sure. Whether it's a wei coco or the malanga leaf, like Ayobe states, or the banana leaf, which is seen much more in Isheshe, right? And that's in Odus like Babao Turameji or Salafobeyo. And that's actually the one the Eko gets rolled in, culturally, But both are fine. Sometimes I put both, depends on what I have on hand. On top of that, we have Eko, right? And the Eko is basically, cornstarch, that's been whipped and cooked and all the lumps taken out, nice and smooth. It's consumed quite frequently within, Yoruba gastronomy. And In Cuba, it became the tamal, being that the cornstarch wasn't as popular. But either way, it's some type of boiled corn, section. And the reason is because in the Odu of Obarawobe, Eko was identified as the child of Olodumare, which was the only person that Olodumare would listen to. So when we're performing Ebbo, the Eko goes inside because all of our invocations go inside through the Ierosung and our saliva and all these different things. Those are the things that Eko takes to Olodumare and what he actually listens to, right? So that's all there. And then we start presenting the animals and the ingredients that go. They get presented to Ori, primordially, the points of the body, like Oturawani and Obeyono state, because each of them has a spirituality and a role to play in the support of Ori. It gets presented to the cardinal points of the tray, etc. An essence of each ingredient is placed inside because all of this is going to be taken by Eshu to heaven to be able to be recognized and confirmed so that the Ire, or the blessing, like the Odu Obetumako says, can come down from heaven and manifest and repair the person's Ori, right? So once that's done, at that point, the Ashe, right, is dispersed. Moshe opom baye, which means I'm going to spread the powder on the tray. What does this powder represent? In the Odu of Obeade, was where the Iami were constantly trying to consume Orumila. And he was having an issue because they wanted his blood, right? And that's why if you notice, traditionally, especially within Isheshe, the Ipeshe doesn't take blood per se. It's given in a very specific way. So when he realized that they were getting closer and they were going to attack him and all these other things, in the Odu of Obeade, he actually transferred his spirituality or transformed into a tree, and it was the Osun tree, right? So what ended up happening is the crows or the Iami started attacking the tree. The termites were eating the tree. Anything with wings is technically an Iami. So they all started consuming the tree and all these different things. And, they realized that they weren't getting the result they were looking for. They were like, oh, we're eating you. He said, well, my spirituality is in the tree, but I am not the tree. So what we can do is to kind of help you guys be satisfied and not feel like you got slighted because I duped y'all. You could take the powder of it and use it to replace my blood, right? So in Obeade is where the Ierosum became synonymous with the blood of Orumila, and that's why it's utilized on the tray of Ifa so that we bathe in it or that we're cleansed in it. The same way other spiritualities say they bathe in the blood of their Messiah, all that comes from Ifa, to be frank with you. These are concepts that are thousands of years older. Yeah. But that's how Orumila made himself immortal, right? Where, the Iami were able to be satisfied. That's why when you perform Ipeshe, it has to be with the Ierosum, because that's the only thing that helps them calm down is consuming Orumila, who was the only man that was ever able to dominate them, right? And that's why you had the red palm oil and things like that to satiate them in a way where they're satisfied and they don't continue to eviscerate and consume the person. So that's one reason why the powder's there. The other reason is that powder represents the gray matter within the brain. So once the powder is dispersed, we have this thing and this concept in the Odu of Eyobe, which is Molaona fun otororo, Kiole laona fumi otororo, where we draw two lines from the base of the tray towards Eshu's head, one right next to the other. And it's basically saying, I draw a line for you, so you draw a line for me. Now, this represents the path between heaven and earth, right? Where Eshu is the one who facilitated it, created it, who opens it and closes it. But when you look at the tray at that point, it resembles the top of a brain, where you have the two hemispheres divided on each side. Another interesting thing is that the actual original tray of Ifa was nothing more than the top of the elephant's cranium, right? So at that point, we're technically spiritually delving into the person's Ori without having to cut it open. That's why a lot of people were like, man, what were we doing before modern surgery? All of these processes, that were really miraculous and kept people alive, possibly longer than we are expected to live now,
Right.
So at that point, we start drawing the various odus that are going to be from the adabo, or the selected signs that are there to cleanse a spirituality and energy, right? So at least within the Lukumi Ebbo. Within the Isheshe Ebbo, you'll see the Toyale painted in the middle. If I recall, Owani Chobe to the right, Ochetura to the left. Sometimes they'll put the other Odus, like the ones that wait for the Ebbo in heaven, like Ogunda Bede, Irosoate, Obarawobe, Okana Yekun. You know, these are the big guys, right? But in the Lukumi tradition, a lot of those are there. But then we have other ones that we incorporate as well. Ochetura always goes right next to Eshu's head, right, to the bottom right. Like in that Odu is where Chango basically etched that sign into that space. That's why nothing can be done without Ochetura. They say that there's not a day that goes by that a Bawalawo somewhere on earth doesn't chant that Odu. So he's the one that provides the Ashe, right? Then after that, you have the Toyale or the Toyade, depending on, how the brother wants to pronounce it, which is the sign that came out, right? Which is what we're cleansing right now. After that comes Odus like Oyekun Nilobe, which is the supervisor of the Ebbo, because the signs that came after him actually beefed out in various Odus. Oshepaure, which is the one who really manifests the spirituality of that combination on the tray. Iwori Wofung, which is one that cleanses it. And Okana Yekun, he's the notary of Ifa. He stamps the seal, thus making the Ebbo legitimate. And apart from that, a slew of other signs that come afterwards. On the left hand of the tray is where you're going to see the Meji, or the 16 ancestral kings, painted as well, along with their personal bodyguards, Iworihuani and Irosoumbo. Now, why are all these Odus being placed here? Because these are the Odus that we're using to cleanse the sign that came out, but apart from that, to cleanse the person's internal destiny that is their Ori situated in their pineal gland, right? As we're moving the packet over the tray in a counterclockwise fashion, we're literally going back in time. This is wild stuff. But it's a time machine. That's why if you look at all the old Bawalaos and Santeros and stuff like that, they'd live forever and their mind was like, they were very sharp people, But that's basically the concept of it, is that we're going back in time. We're going against that which is linear to try to take you back to a place or cleanse you back to a place where we're realigning you, right? Another thing is the packet is moved in that fashion to be able to align you with Earth's rotation, right? Instead of going against nature, we want Ori to be in flow with Inleogere, right? Or Earth itself. And this is very key as well, because the tray also represents the universe, Earth, that which is circular. Through these offerings and things like that, we're trying to harmonize ourselves with all of these energies around us, that if we don't come to these practices, we don't even know they want anything. That's why people go their whole lives and they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I owed chickpeas to the Yami Shoronga. And you'd be surprised, and you know how influential it is on the person's life, because they get that done and then all of a sudden everything goes great, and it's really inexplicable for anything other than faith and process, right? Ultimately, the Ebbo is completed. Aspects of the second tablero involve the feathers and things like that. It's another format to cleanse and offer over the Odus Oberosung and Oturache. Then you have the third tablero, another series of signs as well, each of them representing something different. Then we get to the point of the Eboda or Eboada, where we ask Ifa if the Ebbo is complete, if it has manifested. This is after performing all of the sacrifices and things like that. Once the Ebbo has been completed and is fulfilled and all these different things, now it's time to situate it in a way where it's going to be received and taken to heaven, right? So these concepts are in the Odus like Okana Yekun, right, where it speaks of Eshu Onibode, which is the Eshu that guards the gates of heaven. You have Okana Sabilari, which actually speaks of Eshu's trajectory, whether it's the Ebbo to him or him to heaven. You see a very explicit expression of this in the Eboriru. And then ultimately, Odus, for us, the Lukumi brothers, of Odifumbo, right? The Ebbo as well is seen as nothing more than a huge cleansing. When you actually translate the phrase Idifumbo, means Idi, or the backside, offered Ebbo. So if you notice there, we're going to pray Odifumbo, We're going to make the nice Chipotle burrito packet with the Ayewo fotu dede Ayewo nafo. We're going to close it in ceremonial fashion. Hierosum, powder, water. We're going to make the burrito. And if you notice after that, it gets spun in a very specific way with the irofa and the iruke. It almost resembles a toilet being flushed, right? Now, this concept comes from Odifumo, where the Ebbo is nothing more than that which is replicating the digestive process. It's to enable us to be able to consume the Ayewo in a way where we're able to disperse it through that which comes out, whether it's biologically or spiritually with the packet. So once, the spinning's done, the tapping's done, unlo esho dara, once that, packet is tossed off of the tray, at that point, the person picks it up in ceremonial fashion. Touch your forehead, chest, shoulders, stomach, knees. It's to identify that packet with all the key points that have to do with us using the bathroom to be able to dispel it, right? Now, once that's done 3 times consecutively and repetitively, then the person picks it up with the left hand, like the Odu Odimei, identified with Shango, and is taken in front of Eshu. Now, this is in Odifumo, but this is also in the Odu of Osala Fobeyo, where everyone would put their Ebbo on top of Eshu's head. So he had to do Ebbo with the Abbe, right? So that the Ebbos wouldn't sit on his head, so he could take it at his leisure. So you put it right in front of Eshu, and then Eshu, once we're done, takes it to heaven. Now, within the Lukumi process, we also identify a destination because they say that there's an extension of that spirituality that resides there, which is one of the spiritualities that is waiting to be, compensated because it has Ori in disarray, where it's taken as well. The best place is always the garbage, right? Like Ayobe says. But you have other places, 4 corners, 3 corners, obviously try not to litter, guys, but at the same time, we have to express ourselves spiritually. And all of this composes the Ebbo process. All of these ceremonial, divine, theatrical mimicry with these celestial overtones are to help us realign Ori, nothing more. So it's quite a process. My Ebbo can take anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2 hours and 15 minutes. A lot of verses. Also depends on the complexity as well. If there's animals, it might be more, but it's a thorough process, especially. Now, that's ideally when the person fulfills and does everything that's recommended. But what happens when people don't do Ebbo, which is probably the most counterproductive thing you could do? So once again, and you see this a lot more in the Western world, where people will come for divination and, they'll do their reading. They might have a predisposed notion of what they think is going on. And the brother Babalawo or Oromila might have a completely different conversation for them. The issue is when you go into an Ifa reading, you have to go in completely open-minded because sometimes we really have no idea what's going on with our lives, And usually if you arrive at the Babalawo at his mat is because you're looking for confirmations that you couldn't come up with yourself. So the worst thing is when someone comes in with a preconceived notion and it's nothing like what Orumila has in store for them, where they might be focused on one thing and Orula is saying, hey, you need to focus on this. This is the real issue. But with that, you need to have humility and acceptance and open-mindedness, because without it, you're going to keep doing the same thing as before. So the whole reading was counterproductive right there. But what could be even more counterproductive is when people go to get a fortune-telling session, which the Babalawo is not a fortune teller, and with their dissatisfaction, they choose not to perform the recommendations. Now, this is very, very tedious because there's a deity known as Eshu who takes personal offense to this kind of behavior. In the Odu of Owani Chobe was where, the person came for divination, right? And Orumila explained what was occurring, what the recommendations were, and the person wasn't trying to hear it all. They thought Orula was scamming them, or he wasn't a good diviner, and he wasn't, on point, which he was, but the person didn't want to accept reality. So they said, hey, that's all right, I'll be in touch. And the person left wholeheartedly knowing they weren't going to fulfill the recommendations. But the problem is one of those recommendations was a rooster for Eshu. So Eshu looked at Orula. He knew that Orula had fulfilled ethically in every way, shape, and form. And then he said, I'm going to help Orula. And it's not even just about Orula. being that he's a great guy and a great diviner, I want my rooster, right? So Eshu basically started tormenting the person and making their life a living hell until they came running back and they got red again. And Owani Chobe came out again with the rooster to Eshu again. But this time, Eshu said, you have to charge her double for the Ebbo. And Orula did. So the person ended up having to do the Ebbo anyway for twice as much for the same results, right? The Odu Eyobe says, if you want to make the diviner a diviner, don't do what Ifa tells you to do. Because a lot of the time, people do Ebbo and they don't see the effect that they might be looking for. It happens because you don't know what state they're coming in spiritually. It might not be a state of advancement. It might be a state of recuperation, equalization, getting just back to base. So everybody's different. But in the Odu Eyobe, once again, was where the person went for divination and they weren't satisfied with the reading. Once again, lack of acceptance. They didn't really want to hear what Orula was saying because he was saying the truth. And they're like, yeah, everything's going fine right now. What you're saying makes no sense to me. I'm not going to do anything. Once again, ahí estaba Eshu. And Eshu looked and said, man, it's incredible, the disrespect. And, he said, I'm going to make sure that everything Orula said now, from a preventative standpoint, is going to actually occur. And Eshu did it all. Every negative thing that Orumila said there for the person to avoid, he manifested it because he wasn't given his derecho or his homage or his tax to be able to avoid it. We have to recall that Eshu is the one who sends the ajogun towards people, and the Iami are the ones that install it into the body, right? So whenever we're performing a bowl, no matter whether it's an animal explicitly for Eshu or not, just the fact that it's in the packet, Okana Yekun says, and Okana Sa, that Eshu is going to consume from it. That's why if you look at the Lukumi bowls, they always have a little bit of extra ingredients and things like that Eshu can kind of, consume on his way to heaven. So my biggest advice, right, because the Odu Baramei says, El que sabe no muere como el que no sabe. He who knows doesn't die like he who is, unaware. If you go to get a reading, it's because you prepared yourself mentally, physically, and economically to fulfill whatever comes out there. Because the Odu Ochepaure says that whenever you perform a reading and you don't perform the recommendations, Eshu takes personal offense to it, because all of those things, regardless of whoever it was marked to, are for him. Because not only is he going to consume from the sacrifices, he's going to consume from the packet, because without him, in the Odu Ochetura, taking things to heaven, nothing on earth manifests spiritually. So he takes personal offense to it. So I always tell people, if you're in a position where you don't want to perform a bowl, or you've already performed a bowl that year, or whatever it is, and you're really not wholeheartedly going to move forward with things, it's better to avoid and figure it out through philosophy, the philosophy of Ifa and good character and things like that. It might not be that you need another Ebbo, but the thing is once we toss that chain, once Iking is pulled, or even the shell, technically whenever somebody gets Daorisa or they throw the Erindi Logun, there's an Ebbo that goes with that. It's very frequent in Isheshe and the Lukumi practice. We don't see it as much. I'd love to see more. Because that's an Ebbo that has to be done based on that number. It's better to just leave it alone.
Do you need to be crowned to do Ebbos?
To be able to perform Ebbo for people, yes. To receive the service of Ebbo, no. Okay. So for you to be able to interact with these implements or, chant the verses of Ifa and Orisha, depending on the Ebbo that you're doing, to be able to realign somebody's Ori, absolutely, you have to be initiated within a priesthood, right? And it's not just to be able to learn it and do it, it's to be able to protect yourself. Part of medical school, yes, you learn the surgery, what you're going to implement, what you're going to administer. But hey, man, there's a huge part in that says this is how you wash your hands. This is how you cut in a way where you don't cut yourself. Like, even in the beginning stages of my career, my godfather was like, this is how you hold the animal. This is how you hold the knife. This is how you cut. This is, this is how you move the packet. Don't mark it like this, mark it like this. And this is just based on what our elders left us. And apart from what we have theoretically within all this literature, it's a combination of both, because lineage and practice is important, but so is theory. Because if you look at medical school, and the reason I use this analogy so much is my father's a physician. I one time considered it. You begin to realize okay, this guy taught me how to do surgery, but I also have to have my own background within this theory because I might be in a situation that he didn't talk to me about, that he might have gone through but didn't have the time to explain to me. And if I don't have theory and concepts behind it, I won't know what my next step is. So that's why it has to be a combination of both. And it's the same thing with Ebbo. These are things that, this is spiritual science, but it still is spiritual. So the things that we recreate and repeat are those that over generations our elders told us, hey, this is what worked the best. So putting Ochetura here worked the best. Putting Odifumbo here, or Ofunchewe here, or Ayobe here, or giving the rooster this, like all of this, they kind of converged between tradition and theory. So as far as Ebbo is nothing more than the strongest tool we have to be able to repair somebody's ori. And, everybody has their own concepts. Some people will say, hey, no hay Ebbo más grande que el tambor. Forgive me, but even Anya had to go visit Orumila and receive Ebbo. Or no una misa. Or no, even within the realm of Ifa, no un parado. No, there is nothing stronger than the process on the Oponfa, like the Odu Ochetura says. So, it's very important to understand the depth and the importance of it so that, if you put yourself in a position to be recommended one, and now Eshu has his attention on you, to be in a position to get it done. If you're not in a position to get it done, it's better to avoid the process altogether. It's like if you go to the doctor. Well, what are we going to the doctor for if we're not going to follow those recommendations? A little bit of a different dynamic because of insurance, maybe not. But it's the same thing here. To be reminded of your problems without seeking a solution technically falls within the realm of mental instability or emotional instability because we're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yep. Well,
there you go.
I love this episode.
Ebbo's righteous. It's the first thing. My godfather wasn't playing, man. I remember when I did Ifa, I said, Padrino, what's next? He said, here's this book. This is the Ebbo. Talk to me when you learn it. When we speak, don't speak to me about anything other than what is in this book. Your day, obviously he was like, how's your family? All these different things. Beautiful man. But he was like, don't talk to me about Cuba. Don't talk to me about baseball. Don't talk to me about anything other than this right here. When I was like, what about other aspects of Ifa? He said, don't talk to me about anything other than what is in this book. Because what happens a lot is brothers do Ifa or Santo, and they don't learn Ebbo. They learn the parado, head rogation, all these different things. There is nothing harder to learn within the religion of Ifa than Ebbo, a properly executed Ebbo, whether it's the Ebbo Riru or the Ebbo Eriateo that we have within our Lukumi process. There's multiple versions as well based on our elders. But he said you need to get this out of the way because if you start trying to get these other quick, satisfactory gratifications, short-term wise, you're never going to sit down and really learn this. And it took me 8 months. It took me 8 months every day to the point where my grandmother, God bless the dead, she thought I was losing my mind. She'd go to my mother and be like, wait, we got to talk to him because he's saying the same thing over and over every day.
No.
But you have to, and always in a healthy standpoint, don't misinterpret me, but, with any of these traditions, especially those that originate from oral, tradition, you have to really delve into repetition. And to be able to say something over and over again, there has to be a certain level of obsession. Now, you have to know when to turn it on and to turn it off. After I learned Ebbo, I didn't talk to anybody about anything spiritual for like 2 weeks just to refresh because, and then I started moving the packet on my own. But it takes that level. So I like to say this because, I like to set real expectations for everybody because every Babalawo should know how to perform Ebbo. Every Olorisha should know how to perform Ebbo ideally, or be in quick contact with somebody who can. Because one day you're going to have somebody that you can compensate to help you, but there might be times when you have nobody and you have to do it for yourself. So I highly recommend, Ebbo. It was a broken record in my spiritual house. But I'm very thankful for their tutelage and their methods and all the things that they imparted upon me because it's what has put us in the position that we're in right now. I mean, when you talk about the spiritual climate that we're in, where everything is aggression, where everything is disputes, debates, pointless ones at that, and the energy that comes from that. That's why in this spiritual game, a lot of people don't last very long. And I would say the one thing that has preserved my family, my mind, my heart, my being, just like my wife, my children, my family, my loved ones, it has been the Ebbo. So that is the level of importance that it has, as far as protecting, dispelling, redistributing energy. It is super key, apart from leading a healthy, active lifestyle as best you can.
Wow. No, definitely a powerful episode. And I think that powerful episode needs to have a new powerful song for our members.
Give it to me.
There we go. All right.
Hotel lobby.
Yeah.
Aruba.
Yeah. There's a reason why I changed it, but that's behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. We know what it is.
But folks, this is the time where we're going to go show love to all the members who support love to the channel.
Nice.
And if you want to know how can I support the channel, how can I show love to the channel, it's real simple. Click on the button right under this video. It says join our membership program.
Nice.
And that'll take you to our membership program where we have 3 separate tiers, and each tier offers its own set of perks, whether it's extra episodes, discounts on merch, early releases. I mean, we got like 1,600 videos on this on the channel, so it's a lot of content, and even private stuff too. Like Joseph will go through some of the comments and reply to comments
all
just as
time.
Videos
all the time.
So that's just for the members. So
yeah.
So these are longer than just a two sentence reply.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Or a heart and a like.
Oh sure, yeah.
So all right. The last show we did, we talked about the recent joins. I want to continue that trend because there's a lot of people who are new.
Love it.
All right, so continuing, we're at Veronica Thibodeau.
Thank you, Veronica.
Supporter
Welcome.
at 20 days.
Nice.
We got Amani.
Okay.
They are a supporter at 28 days.
Thank you.
We got Coco Leste.
Great name.
At supporter. They're at 29 days.
Thank you, Coco.
We got Panda Lovin'. I love some pandas too.
Oh man, Panda Express is my go-to right now.
All right, they're in at a month. We got Frank Rios.
Frank.
They are also in at a month.
Thank you.
And they're a supporter. We got Sherry Ram, who's also a supporter at 1 month.
Righteous.
Manifest Glory Now. Love that name.
Love it.
They are at 1 month. And this is a VIP member here. We got K Libra, and they are at 1 month.
Oh, that's awesome, guys. Get in the membership program. Let somebody know about it. See you at these workshops. Get those last seats that are available. Visit botanicacandlesandmore.com for all of your spiritual products and needs and services and whatnot. We do ship. Listen to us if you can't watch us here on YouTube on any of the major platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, podcasts, etc. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, family, see the light.
Before we go.
Okay.
Before we go.
You know how hard it is to do that smile, for you to do that too?
I know. I should just make that the thumbnail though, because like that's when you smile at the very end. It's hard trying to take the screenshots. I don't know if you guys notice this. Whenever we do the thumbnail, I try to get Joseph's the most awkward
in the most precarious position.
So if you guys catch that, comment on the videos. But I did want to bring up something, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the earlier shows we had, I talked about I lost my mother.
Yeah.
Right.
God bless the dead.
But that whole week was something that was very, very tough for me.
Yes, sir.
I recently found out that I have stage 5 kidney disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also known as end-stage renal disease. So stage 5 is the most severe case of kidney disease. And I found out I thought I had really bad acne on my face. I mean, you've seen my face.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Thought my acne was really, really bad. Went to my dermatologist. They did some biopsy, and they found out it's a different skin condition that's tied in with end-stage renal disease. So I went to my nephrologist and found out that my kidney function is at 14%, which is stage 5. And obviously 100% is good. The lower you go, the worse it gets. And so I'm going through all this stuff, and then 2 days later, my mom died. Yeah. So
a week, man.
Yeah, it was a tough week, but I'm actually in good spirits. Everything I'm going through right now is pretty overwhelming, but I think I'm managing it well. I have a great team. Family's obviously helping me, supporting me.
Absolutely.
I did build a website, and I'm going to share that.
Love that.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
the screen's not on, but I put a picture on the screen. So if you guys can go to that website, it's called kidney4phil.com. It's really
Check
simple.
it out, guys.
Everything is there. All the information on how if you are interested, because I am interested in needing a living donor. I'm looking for a living donor.
Yes.
Before I get on dialysis. That's the best option. So if you are interested, there is information there. Or if you want to help out in any other ways, you can do that. But yeah, just check out kidney4phil.com, and yeah, everything is there.
Check it out, guys. Brother, wishing you nothing but strength as we continue with this journey. We'll keep advertising it. We'll keep putting it up there. And, you know, if life and God has shown me one thing, is that things time up. So keep your demeanor, keep your spirits. You're nothing short of a brother, and, you know, I expect positive things.
All right. Thank you. See you guys later.
See the light, guys.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way. We